Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, my name is Osmo582, and today I thought I'd finally make a video that I've been promising to make for a decent amount of time to one person who commented how I typically set up my raid teams for my 3.3.5 rating on the NPC Trinitycore packs. Also, a little update for the channel before we get into some of the steps I take and how I set things up. I did recently get the EMU Coach 4.3.4 and 5.4.8 repacks in order to try those out, and they just updated the 5.41 with the increased additions to the the player bots and stuff, which we'll definitely get into. And I'm using a different NPCbot repack than I was before. This one's completely different with the new updated bots from 2021, I want to say. So anyway, we're not going to go on to one of my existing characters. This is Goral. He is a shaman who, as you can tell, they've been progressing through Nax pretty fast, actually. I'm equipped with some of my epics. In fact, I think most of my gear is epics, except for I have no shoes or a belt. But I have 2 pieces of the tier set, and I have a fist weapon of all things. Goral's unique thing is that his raid team is Horde and Alliance mixed. I made a 25-man team where it's mixing everybody. But instead, I'm going to jump to a character that I started from scratch that I haven't played yet, my Shadow Priest for a new 10-man team, known as Shades. Alrighty, so we're in our undead starting zone. So what we're going to do first is with every character we do dot level up, and then you do 79. So that's going to level me, and you click yourself. So that levels you up to level 80, which is the max level in, of course, World of Warcraft Wrath of the Lich King. And instead of just walking, we're going to do dot T-E-L-E-D-A-L-A-R-A-N for Dalaran, and we're going to teleport to Dalaran. T-E-L-E command is for teleport. You can type out teleport or just type out the abbreviation. There's our boy Arthas back in his glory. Pain in the ass. Alrighty. So you may notice all the shadows appearing on the ground. That is because Goral's raid team sits here when they're not active. So we're going to give it a second here because I'm about to get buffed like 16 times. Oh, yes. And at one point, I did have a Dreadlord, and I did have a Dark Ranger, a part of the group. Alright, so this is Goral's raid team. This is all the members. And all their raids here and all their sets, too. So yeah, that's where they all sit. So usually what I do is I do some fancy stuff around here in my Dalaran. So I'm going to go through some of the steps that I do first. So first thing is on Horde and Alliance, as everybody knows in Dalaran, there's the 2 sections of the city with the Sun Reavers, and I don't remember the first Covenant, Silver Covenant, that run the Alliance. I don't play Alliance that much. First thing you want to do is I create a mall. In a private server terms, it's an area usually filled with vendors. And since there's vendors all around Dalaran already, that part's taken care of. But for trainers, I have to place them. Trinitycore comes with characters in the database that are all a bunch of generic goblins for every class. And the way you can do that is do dot look up creature, and you type in the name trainer. And then you scroll up just a little bit. And there you go. There they all are. So as you can see, I need to spawn these guys in somehow. So I said, so you want to find... All right, so to add these characters, we got to find the one we need, so we need a priest trainer. Even though the priest trainer is right there, I'm just going to type in the command for what you would do to add. So wherever you're standing and the way you're facing is the way that the character will spawn. So you have to do NPC add, and then you type in the code for the guy. 26328. Enter. And now you see the priest trainer is now here. So now I'm going to do NPC delete. Is it? Oh, there it goes. A little delayed there. All right. So that removes the creature. And as you can see, I'm so good that I left that in. So you want to pick your spec first, of course. Well, I'm not going to go over this because this is like typical WoW stuff. So pick the spec that you want. So I'm going to be a Shadow Priest. And literally just put in all your talent points like you normally would. For me, personally, even in this instance of, single-player project stuff, I'm not looking to play the game like legit still. I never really played WoW to be super extreme like a lot of people do. I'm just doing my thing here. So to me, it's like I still play this as a casual experience, not as like a super hardcore thing like people do in the real game. So for me, I still just fuck around, basically. So I don't care about my stats, specs, or anything. Now, of course, as everybody knows in this day and age, you have to buy all your skills. It's going to cost about 1,000 gold to get all your spells. So what you want to do is you want to do dot send money, your character name, case sensitive, type in the message, so 2 quotes and a bunch of text. So the first one indicates where it's from, and the second one is the text in the document. And then you got to do that is a single copper. So you just have to do like 10, 100, a silver, 10 silver, like 100, and then it's like a gold, and it's a 10 gold, 100 gold, and you hit enter. So now it's going to say mail sent. We'll come back to that because that mail is going to take some time. All you got to know is for that part is once you get your money, you go to your class trainer and you train yourself up. Now, It comes to gear. Rating is nearly impossible without the proper gear in order to do it. Now, if I remember correctly, how I discovered this is I actually did a lot of research online, but I actually figured out the gear sets required. So as you see, I made a crap ton of macros for my Wrath of the Lich King build. All these macros do a bunch of things that help me get my group up and running, because it's a real pain in the ass, and I've done it all in the macros, so I don't have to constantly look it up. But as you see, this is a druid, for example. But you see the command is .add item, and all the number codes. This is for the Savage Gladiator gear, which was the blue tier PvP sets of the day. This gear is good enough for a 25 and 10-man team to enter into Nax to start raiding. Now, the deal is, this is how I made it easier to get the gear. Now, one, you could look up the gear online and then find the codes that way from the name. That's what I did originally, and then I just wrote them all down. It was time-consuming, but nobody cares about that. We're here to start up a raid group. So first what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my interface here, do some action bars, left, right, all that. And then we're going to go into my macros here, and we're going to add over all of my lookup like characters and stuff. All right, guys, we're now back. And as you can see, I've added all of my macros. Now, of course, if you wanted to do this legitimate, what you would actually end up doing is to go into your text bar and do .NPCbot lookup, and then do a number. So if I'm correct, number 2 is for DKs. And it is not. This is for paladins, actually. I can tell because some of these character names are familiar. So that's how you would look up the characters first. And these are all of the player bots that fit this class of 2, which is the Pallies. These classes they show their races. Now, again, like I said, by default, the bots that you summon will be friendly to the faction that you are. So if I summon Joel here as a Draenei, he will be tagged as a Horde member and a Horde guard, basically. So because of that, any Horde player that would come into my server, excuse me, I apologize for that fart. Any Horde member would be able to recruit these guys, and even Alliance would see them as hostiles, because they're classified as Horde. So that's one way you can add them, or look them up. The other way is to make a macro for them where you literally just type in the command. So NPCbot lookup 3 is for hunters, and that's what I did. And also, like I said, for the gear, I already did that. So I'm going to give myself all the priest gear because, you know, that's what I am. And there you go. Now I'm fully armed up in my priest equipment, ready to rock and roll. I haven't done the classes or got my abilities yet because that's something that's like a basic WoW thing that doesn't really need any intro. Now we are doing a 10-man team. Now 10-man teams are typically 2 tanks, 3 healers, and 5 DPS is the typical 10-man setup I know of. I typically make it that we'll have 2 main tanks, 1 DPS that can be an off tank, so that's either a Pally Warrior, Druid, or Death Knight. And then the 3 healers, usually I do a Druid, a Priest, and either a Shaman, or then I do 2 Priests and a Druid, something like that. I never usually take, especially in a 10-man, I never usually take Paladins as dedicated healers. Always take, I only take 1 Paladin as like a dedicated healer if it's 25, because there's enough people to cover the slack. So what we want to do is we want to get first our tanks, which obviously is going to be a DK and a, we'll probably do a Paladin because they're the best. So you need to find characters that aren't used. Now, this might take some time to figure out because, like you saw, we had an army of guys in the middle. If they're already spawned somewhere under the control of a player, they are taken. And you can't spawn them here because they will be, it will tell you otherwise. Watch. So I can type in a character I know is a part of the other raid team. So you do NPCbot spawn, then the number, enter. And now it says he already exists in the table because he's all the way over there. Even if I moved him here, he's still under the control of another player. So I'm going to do NPCbot spawn again and spawn somebody I know who isn't used. And that would be my boys. That's a good question. I know Croc is out there. I don't know if Zobri is. 70463. All right, so my boy Zobri is not taken. So Zobri is now our first main tank. So I'm going to get the second tank, which is going to be our Paladins. So we're going to do NPCbot spawn again. And let's do, I don't think Sias here is taken. But they could be, because like I said, I have massive groups. She was not. All right, so there's your tanks. So basically, you repeat this process by looking up your bots and doing the NPCbot lookup and then doing NPCbot spawn and their number to get yourself a full team. And you just got to keep in mind the count because, you know, you have to physically keep counting your members, which is why I typically will keep everybody separated, as seen here. An example of keeping the guys separated physically is like inside of the tavern here, the Filthy Animal. My raid group that's in here of a 10-man team, I have this table dedicated to the tanks. I have this table is dedicated to DPS. I would take the other seat. And this table was for the healers. Same thing upstairs. There's another raid team that sits up there as well, and they're separated out by role. It just makes it easier for you to keep count and not accidentally take more people than you need. Because a bit of pain in the ass if the game gives you an error when you try to enter an instance if you have limitations turned on, which is on by default as far as I'm concerned. Alright, so we will be back once we have a full team set up, and then I'll show you how I do the rest. Okay, and we're back. So now, as you can see, I've separated the group. There's our 2 tanks, our 3 healers in the corner, and then there's our 4 DPS plus me. So now what you have to do is you have to add your guys. Now, 2 ways you can do this. Again, you can use the magic of macros. Let me get all my macros actually on my bar real quick. So we'll go over those in a second. So first thing you have to do is you have to add your team. So click on the bot you want, enter .NPCbot add. And bada boom. He's now part of my crew. Now using the macro I created, I can just click on somebody and mash the button, and they're part of my crew. So what I do now is you can do NPCbot command stay. Ah, you bastard, I forgot. NPCbot command stand still. Alright, so now they won't move, as you can see. This makes it a lot easier for you to give out gear. Now, for me personally, the plate gear I give out to all my plate wearers is the Savage Serenite gear. So what you do is you click on the character in question, or we'll do the death thing first. Manage equipment, auto-equipped, and you see all the stuff here? You just go down the list, giving them everything. Oops, don't miss anything. Then you go back and hit update visual. And my boy Zorbri here has a full tier set on. Now, since these guys are tanking, you have to tell them to tank. You right-click on them to speak. They give you a little thing. You go to manage roles and make sure tanking's turned on. Now, believe it or not, to anybody who, hasn't played Wrath, back in these days after looking it up, Frost was actually the tanking spec of the day before it was changed to Blood. So make sure that he's on to Frost. And now he's ready. Now, for wielders of shields for tanking, such as Paladins and Warriors, I made a tank gear section that gives them the Gladiator Slicer and the Shield Wall. Manage equipment, auto-equipped. Give them the Serenite gear. Then the Shield Wall and the Slicer. And then do update visual. And now she is ready to go. Talk to her. Talents. She needs to be on protection. So now you'll see, just like the regular characters, she'll change her spec. She'll lose all of her buffs, which isn't super accurate. Talk to her again. And then do manage roles and make sure tanking is turned on. And typically for me with my Paladins, usually for talents, I sometimes turn off healing so they're not distracted. But, no big deal. And now they're good. So now all you have to do is rapidly add everybody else to the group. So, again, using your command, which is the ideal way to do it, you add everybody to your group real quick. Then you separate them all out. Usually what I do for gear, hit stay. They'll all stay put. Then I'll do the same thing for my DPS. Add. Come on, give me the right guy. Add. 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 And now I take them to a little corner over here, and I hit stay. And they're all going to do their thing. Alright, we'll come back once they're all geared up to go over more of the roles and such. Alrighty, and now we're back yet again. Everybody, as you can see, has been geared up with their Savage Gladiator gear and they're ready to go. The last thing you really have to do before you're ready to really get out into the forest, aside from adding everybody to a group by simply right-clicking one of your bots, creating a group with all bots and you're set. But the main thing you need to do is actually make sure everybody's roles are selected the way you want and stuff like that. So, speaking of which, you go up to your healers. You just want to make sure that they're all set up right. So you make sure that their talents are the right ones. So you're not a resto. So you're shadow, so I'll make you a disc. So all these guys were not correct, so they all need work. So for them, it's pretty easy because all healing classes usually have it set in their roles that healing is on. Now, if you turn off DPS, these guys will not fight enemies at all, which is highly unrealistic of a healer that actually reserves all their mana for heals. That is just a ludicrous idea that a healer is to only heal. So usually these guys are set up by default ready to go. For shamans, it is possible to actually make enchantment shamans by going into roles, turning off ranged, and then changing their talents to enhancement, and they will fight hand to hand. Same thing with druids. Druids can play all 3 roles. So to make them tank, you would make them be a feral and then turn on tanking and turn off ranged. Now, actually, druids are a very unique case, and most of the time for me, whoopsie daisy, they're the only ones that I actually want to make a healer only. And the reason why is because druids have forms and healing, tanking, DPS, of any kind that makes them better. So if you make them a DPS that can't tank and feral, they change the cat. If you make them that they can tank, they change the bear. If you make it that they are a ranged balanced druid that only does damage, they go to Moonkin. And if you make them a healer only, they go to Trent form. It benefits your group if they go into those forms because they do more damage. If they're a hybrid, like I have this set to now, he stays in his current Tarn form and uses healing and damage abilities from balance. So he doesn't do as much healing as he could. So sometimes it's actually better that your druids are always one thing and that's it. But again, I'm very casual, so to me it doesn't really matter. He will do just fine. Druk. As for your DPS, such as your hunters and your warlocks, you can actually tell them what pets to bring out with them. And since imps have buffs, as you can see, to heal or to health, they're good to take with you. But you can tell them to change it. And if they are demonology warlocks, they do have the option of the Felguard. Mages can give you food and water and refreshment tables. They can give you soul wells and health stones. In my experience, the mage probably has the least amount of abilities in his pool of stuff he can use. But I've seen that Arcane and Fire are pretty good. Frost he uses literally, I think, nothing but Frost Bolts. And that's it. But like for Fire and Arcane, he uses a little bit more. I think their pool needs to be expanded because I see the other classes use a lot more than the mages. So for me, typically, I don't usually use Frost. They're usually Arcane or Fire. Rogues, it usually depends on their weapons, and you can even pick their poisons. And they can pick locks up to level 400. But they can also change the poisons that they equipped. So that's pretty cool. And I gotta make sure that I usually do assassination. Same thing for hunters. You can do choose pet type. And as you can see, you have none, auto, you have all the exotic beasts that were in the game at this point, or you can tell them to summon a random beast of any kind. And then, of course, same thing, they have to be a beastmaster in order to summon exotics. The exotics will still show up on the list, but they won't be able to be summoned. With that information, the group is now ready for action. Now, again, this is all we really need here to really get into action. So then you hit go, or you type in the command to follow, and now everybody is with me. You talk to one of your guys for formations. I usually do 60 as my follow distance, and I do attack distance as long range so that the AI do stay far away from enemies that are trying to hurt us. And as you can see, AI will automatically move in a certain formation. Melee combatants will usually be on the sides of you, with your ranged combatants being behind. So everybody is in a nice little formation here. Usually they don't separate the way they are, but I might be noticing it more simply because there's less people. Like I said, in the past few weeks, I've been very much used to running with a 25-man team. And with that, you and your team are now ready to begin raiding at Naxxramas on either 10 or 25-man difficulties. Simply by hitting .TELENAX to teleport directly inside a Nax, or 2 X's to teleport outside. After that, the world is your oyster to begin raiding. Any gear you get, you just go up to your bots, hit Manage Equipment, and then in case you need to know if the gear is good or not, you can always click on, the piece of gear they have, click on the item, then click in the description to see the stats, and then compare it to whatever item you found for them on the field. That is the way that I replace gear. But usually when you first start like this with the Savage Gladiator gear, everybody's gear is so baloney in comparison to Epic's that the gear you're currently wearing will always be worse than the raid gear that drops. For tier sets, is a little special. Tier sets, you can only turn in at this point in the game to the vendor that will only show you your gear. The way I do this is by literally Googling the set, and then once you get a piece, like one of the pieces, I sell the piece. Unless I can use it, then I turn it in. And then what I do is I look it up online and then do look up item. And then I copy and paste the item name from online into that spot. Then it will give you the exact piece, and then you do .add item, then the code, and you click on yourself and it adds the item to your inventory. Then you hand out the tier sets. So I still play fair and make it that we have to find the pieces, but you have to cheese it a little bit with the game in order to actually physically get the pieces. And other than that, we are ready to go as a fully fledged 10-man raid team to tackle Wrath of the Lich King. As always, thank you for watching, and I hope this tutorial helps somebody. As you can tell, I'm not a professional at this.